agenda or any changes, additions or deletions?
No additions, deletions, Madam Chair. And just a note, the first item in the presentation is a virtual presentation.
A virtual presentation? Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Vandenberg?
My question is around the reports on EMRB and that sort of thing. Why are those in camera?
So, Madam Chair, members of council, there are times we talk about strategy or issues with other municipalities, and so it's advice to council, which is privileged, and so we typically have those in camera so we can have a very candid, frank conversation that isn't shared publicly at times.
Is there a risk, though, because this information is probably of interest to our taxpayers? Is there a risk of not having this available to the public? And yes, there are matters that we ought to take into camera, but to put the whole thing into camera, I'm just wondering what the prudency is around that.
The risk would be, I guess, if we started talking about something that should be in camera and we missed that opportunity to go in camera, but
doesn't that apply to all our business?
Generally, most of the stuff that we present is for public consumption. The piece around the intergov, lots of times majority of our discussions are sensitive in nature.
Mr. Coleman, summary documents from the EMRB, they do a summary on board meetings, they do a summary on committee meetings. Do we post those anywhere so that if our residents were interested in what's happening at that level, they would have those? And if not, could we start doing that? Because they are for public.
Yeah, we don't, but we could. Those summary documents for sure.
Does that help, Councillor Vandenberg?
It would, because to me, it's like, what are we hiding here?
Yeah, it's not that we're hiding anything. It's the conversations that members of council are having.
And I respect that. But at the same time, I still think there's information that we could freely share.
Yep.
That would show our transparency.
Yep.
So I appreciate that suggestion.
Mr. Coleman, I'm going to assume we won't need a motion for that,
No.
that has been noted by administration and recorded. And again, those come out, they're easy to read. And I think we could find a place on our website to post those for all those that are interested. Thank you for that good conversation. Thank you, Councillor Vandenberg. So need someone to move the agenda as presented. Councillor Balazar, all in favor? That's unanimous. We have minutes of our February 1st governance and priority meeting. Looking for someone to move those. Councillor Wanchuk, thank you very much. All in favor? That is unanimous. On to our presentation. I was right at 10:03, by the way. And our presentation is Chris McLeod from Edmonton Global. And Mr. Gallant, are you just going to be here to answer questions if we have any later?
Sure.
That's the right answer. I like that. So whenever we're connected, we will. Always takes a minute or two.
Can we please test the audio?
Yeah, I could speak to it a little bit.
Maybe over lunch or when we break. All right. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Hi.
Morning.
Welcome to our governance and priorities meeting, and looking forward to an update from someone.
Whoever can find the unmute button first.
Okay.
And I
The
believe,
floor is yours.
and Tracy Bednard will be starting for us.
Hi, Tracy. Or not.
Tracy may be having technical difficulties, so I think she may have just logged out and be logging back in.
Alrighty.
I don't think we need to introduce Tracy to you. You probably met once or 100 or 500 times. Oh, it just got very dark in council
Oh, can you not
chambers.
see us? Oh, It's just
I'm
easier for
feeling,
us to see the screen is all.
that's okay. We don't mind. It just
We're
felt a
all
little
older
intimidating,
except-
very, a little Godfather-esque.
We're all older except for Counselor Lewis, and so we're just gonna have our morning nap. Counselor Lewis is still ready to go.
I'm here.
Tracy, are you able to hear us now?
I can see her.
Yeah, we can see her. She looks
It's on.
great.
As always.
Okay. Tracy, if you can unmute yourself, we're probably gonna let you kick it off.
Well, let's hope that I can figure this out. Good morning.
Hi, Tracy.
Hello. I'm glad that you can hear me. I'm glad that I can hear you. We're really happy to be here, and I'm sorry that I missed the introduction, but I think, do we have half an hour, Mayor?
Yeah, probably half an hour presentation and then another 10 or 15 minutes for questions if we could, in case that goes.
Okay, that's great. I just wanted to start, of course, by thanking you for your time. I'm Tracy Bednard. It's nice to be back joining you all and having. Oh, hello.
Oh, sorry.
It is you.
They were just cutouts. We're all at home.
But it's for us. It's really nice to be joining you because you have a consistency on council, and we haven't seen that with many of our shareholders. So, when the team and Eddie and I were speaking, our intent was to go through the presentation, but to be really direct, you will likely know this presentation almost as well as we do. So Eddie, maybe we'll spend a little more time than we had originally intended actually going through the slides, but then we wanted to have a Q&A, and we also really wanted to spend some time just hearing from you, because you were really, original architects of this, and have seen it evolved. We wanted to really get an understanding from you about how you feel things are evolving, and just maybe some input for how we can continue to improve. So with that, I'm just going to ask if we could put up, do you see the PowerPoint slide? Yeah, almost. Maybe.
Almost. We do now.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to start by providing some introductions. And now I think that you likely know everyone, but it's just a reminder, you know that we try to use this as an opportunity to reinforce the expertise and the commitment that we have on Edmonton Global. So of course, Eddie Wong. I believe Eddie is a board member of Edmonton Global, and he is the Associate Dean International of the U of A School of Business. He's also on the trade, vice chair of the Trade and Market Access Committee, the China Institute. And, from my perspective, Eddie really wanted to be here. I know that, that Dr. Blade was here last time. Eddie and I asked if we could provide this presentation today because Eddie does so much work in terms of global trade, particularly in Asia. So again, from my perspective, when I think about Eddie, he's someone who really understands that trade piece, particularly when it comes to trade and logistics, and that's really important to us in Leduc County and of course Edmonton Global. So I really appreciate that Eddie will be here supporting. Chris McLeod, you know Chris, but again, I wanted to reinforce how lucky we are to have Chris. He's the VP of Global Marketing and Communications, and a key focus for us, of course, has been to unify our brand and our message. And Chris ensures that we do that through local input, but then a consistent global brand. So Chris is just critical for us. And Mustafa, I introduced Mustafa last time, so I won't go into as much detail. But again, I just wanted to note that having Mustafa and Eddie here are really people that have done international work. And so to have those two here, I really appreciate their international perspective. And, I've talked to you about having worked both and with Eddie in international markets. So those two are the real deal. So happy to have them here. I can't see my full screen. Is there anyone else from our team, Chris? We got it all? Okay, good. So we'll go into, I think we can click now, please. You know what our purpose is. It's to radically transform and grow the economy of our region. We're certainly clear on that. I want to just note that I think one of the differences over the years as we've evolved is really our data focused strategy. So that is a differentiator for us, and certainly something that we've enhanced. You're, of course, we can move to the next slide, please. Thanks. You know about these principles, but one of the things that I wanted to highlight and just maybe continue to arm you as you speak with your other council colleagues across the region is the whole idea of shared investment and shared value. And so we have a quote from Toronto Global. They're the regional economic development agency that supports more than 20 municipalities. So, you know, a couple more than us, but not too many more. And their point of their study and what they published was to demonstrate that the multi-regional output model shows that FDI, regardless of the specific location, benefits the region as a whole. So I just wanted to share a quote, and it's that while the host jurisdiction sees the greatest share of economic benefits associated with any investment project, all regional jurisdictions ultimately benefit in terms of employment creation, taxes, the purchase of supplies and services, and other benefits to varying degrees. I know you guys know this. I know you've been an advocate for this, but just asking you to continue to share that value with our council colleagues around the region. The only other sort of thing I wanted to point out was harmonized regional voices. Our team, and you could ask them a little bit more about this, but our team was at a site selector conference in Arizona just back in 2021, and there was a panel of site selectors, and collectively the theme was that the single biggest innovation in the economic development space was economic development agencies that support a regional approach. And that is the way that smaller municipalities get more attention than if we all do it on our own. Again, I know you know this, and I would just like to say maybe we were a little bit ahead of our game, but that's certainly a trend that our team is seeing out in the market as well. And then moving on to the next slide, just looking at these priorities. Again, certainly, you know, our main priority is FDI and trade. I've talked about the strong regional brand and our continued commitment to work with a variety of stakeholders. So not just, you know, with the direction of our shareholders, but to work collaboratively with our stakeholders. And we'll look a little bit at that on the next slide. Great. So our strategy, just wanted to talk just again to remind us of our strategic approach. Edmonton Global supports the investor in all aspects of their investment journey, and we have been developing a number of subject matter experts, I guess I should say, recruiting into the sector so that we have expertise aligned exactly into those sectors. And I hope that Harold and others will corroborate that we need to continue. It's more important than ever to work with our local economic development officers. So again, Edmonton Global does not take away from the local economic developer. It should make them busier and vice versa. So it's a key part of how our approach is viewed. I mentioned the data-driven strategies, which is really important to us. And you know, you'll continue to hear us talk about building a sustainable economic vision and for our region. I think, yeah, so our approach here, I think we'll move on to the focus sectors. Again, you're aware of these focus sectors, and of course they align very nicely with Leduc County. Just wanted to go to the next slide, and you'll also hear us talk a little bit more about major transformational opportunities, and these align into the sectors, but just driving a little bit into more detail around those, and they are here, and we can talk about any one of these in more detail when we get into the discussion, but wanted to put those in front of you. And now I'm going to hand it over to Eddie. I know you probably hear from me lots. Eddie's going to be more interesting. Eddie's going to talk for a few more slides, and then we'll get into a discussion and Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, and good morning, everyone. I thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to speak to council today. And I want to start off by saying that in the last little while in my own professional work, I didn't realize that many of the things that I was talking about was actually about Leduc County. Amanda, can I have the next slide, please? Because when I was telling my students about in my supply chain course about the future of Edmonton, and when I did a webinar for the Real Estate Institute a couple of weeks ago, I kept telling people that in the post-pandemic world, logistics is going to be everything. And then when I was asked to do this presentation and look at slide 10, I said, well, this is where it's at, Leduc County. The opportunity for Leduc County going forward is going to be tremendous. We know that your proximity to the air, rail, and road network has really been a significant benefit to the county. But the industrial base and the capacity that you have in terms of value added activities, in terms of land availability and so on, plus your overall commitment and the business environment that is friendly to innovation. These are all things that will be extremely important in the post-COVID world when the global supply chains start to change to fit the changing supply chain practices in the future. And so I look forward to seeing a greater investment coming into Leduc County, and I'm sure that Edmonton Global will play a part in that as well. And next slide, please. And Tracy, talk a little bit about the regional approach, why the regional approach is important. And I only want to add one thing, and that is many economic studies have really shown that when it comes to attracting foreign direct investment, but also economic development in general, national policy plays second fiddle to regional policy. Regional policy is where it's at. It is really regional governments that determine how competitive a region would be. And overall, when we're looking at attraction of foreign direct investment, many of the parameters that people look at are not really national. They're not necessarily looking at the national income tax rate, et cetera, et cetera. They're looking at what's happening at the region, how the regional government is working with investors. So from that perspective, the regional approach is extremely important, and I think that we have begun to show some results in the Edmonton region in the last couple of years. Next slide, please. And one of the achievement of Edmonton Global is the role that we have managed to play in the ecosystem, and this is something that I actually personally take a little bit of pride in, because I remember talking to Malcolm when we were in China, and the conversation was about readiness and preparedness of the region to attract foreign direct investment. It's not just going out into the world telling people about how great we are. Are we ready to receive them? Are we ready to work as a team? And I use the term the back end of the supply chain. That means working with the EDOs, working with the municipalities to identify regional assets, to work together, okay, to prepare the ecosystem for foreign direct investors. And I think we've done well in that regard in the last couple of years, despite the fact that the pandemic has put a damper on a lot of our activities. But when we look at the relationship that Edmonton Global has been able to build with other stakeholders, the EDOs, the national, provincial entities, and foreign entities, it has been extremely successful from my perspective. Next slide, please. And this slide give us a quick glance at some of the high level results that we have been able to achieve. In the last couple of years, we've been able to support the creation of 2,600 construction jobs and 400 permanent jobs in the Edmonton area. And we have been able to support a total of $1.7 billion in investment. And I'm sure that there'll be more announcements coming in the future. And I look forward to those as well. And these results are actually very positive because of the fact that in general, it takes 3 to 5 years for any outreach to a potential investor to result in an actual investment. It takes time. And also, given the fact that competition for foreign direct investment is really, really fierce at the international level nowadays. And when we look at the development policies of various governments, all the way from Asia to Europe, regional economic development, and particularly the attraction of foreign direct investment, has been a priority. All governments have put in more resources. So from that perspective, Edmonton Global has done well. And I think the regional approach has really been important. And in that regard, and I would echo Tracy's sentiment that Leduc County and Madam Mayor, yourself, you guys have been visionary. You guys have been the leaders in this in creating this regional body, but also the supportive attitude, the leadership. They're intangible, but they're extremely important. And I think what's representative of this leadership is Rosov, the regional airport service opportunity fund. I think that is extremely important. It shows the world that we recognize what is important in this region. We value the airport, we value the logistic services that we have to provide, but also we value the unity of the region and what we can bring to the table as a region. So these are things that I would count as reason why we have been successful, and the reason why we will continue to be successful going forward. And next slide, please. I think this slide indicates several of the more high-profile investment that we have seen in the region. And I'm sure that with the development of the hydrogen hub in Edmonton and many of the other activities that surround that, the region itself will prosper, will continue to do well. And I think Leduc County will play a very important role because Leduc County provides a lot of the key services and manufacturing facilities that would be key in supporting many of the projects going forward. And I'm going to stop my talking here, and I think this is it gives us a chance to find out what's on your mind, and perhaps we can glean some insight from you what development ideas you have going forward. And we have Chris and Mustafa here to help us out with any question we cannot answer. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
How did you know I was raising my hand? I was just looking at you.
Okay, thanks for the respect. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg. Time is wasting.
Thank you, Deputy Smith. Thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions, I guess. And I appreciated Trevor's presentation on Friday to do with value add in agriculture. That has been a point of discussion for us as a group, wondering when those efficiencies, those opportunities will come to surface. Trevor spoke very well, seemed to be quite knowledgeable in that regard, but that is a pretty important piece for Leduc County, as you can imagine. So successes in that area are welcomed, and will be of keen interest to watch that development. My question regarding, it's around site selectors. So is Edmonton Global really comfortable with understanding what the site selector offerings are of Leduc County? You spoke of the focus sectors. In our strategic plan, we talked at least focusing on 3 of those. But we're wondering, with everything that's going on, is there something more that Leduc County can do for you to ensure that we rise to the top when it comes to these site selector conversations, is my first question.
Good, Tracy.
Thanks. The first point I wanted to make, just relative to ag, obviously, I've worked closely with Mark for a few years, and that's great. And again, we're happy to have his continuity. I know our team, and I don't know sort of who's in the room, but I know that our team also appreciates Brianna and her ag background. So I just wanted to make the point that even at the board level, we're aware of that, and that is certainly helpful. I'm going to hand it over to Mustafa to speak specifically, and then probably Chris as well, because he's been working on ensuring that we have the ability to collect the right information to be putting that forward.
I think the short answer is little, but not enough. And I'll speak a little bit here from my own personal experience. I took this role with Edmonton Global and I moved here during a pandemic, right? It's been one of the greatest challenges. I haven't really been able to spend time in market, in jurisdiction, and we're starting to do that now and hoping to do a lot more of that in the coming quarter. But broadly speaking, Trevor is very familiar with the ag value proposition. So Trevor, agronomist, 13 years working with Alberta Ag and Forestry, but he understands, and then 8 years in the private sector, he understands the overall, but I think that we're hoping to do more in-depth time coming out to meet with all of our shareholders and spending time in your offices. So half day, 1 day visits where we get to see the assets. The site selector strategy piece has also been kind of on hold a little bit before December's outreach to that economics event in Arizona. But it's something we're looking to invest more time into. So the short answer is yes, we generally understand it, but I would be remiss if I said we fully understand the ag value proposition specific to Leduc County. So I don't want to overstate that. And I think in general, Edmonton Global, we are still in the evolution phase. We are a much more robust organization than we were 3 years ago, but we're still learning. And part of that evolution is I went out last year and I said, I want sector experts who really have sector expertise. And I recruited Trevor because of his background. I recruited Robert Secor in the health and life sciences sector because these are people who actually know those sectors really well. And that speaks to our bench strength. In terms of international markets, Trevor and I actually will be going out to the UAE in a couple of weeks. And this is a big market for Alberta agricultural exports. There are ties to some of the potential investors who could be interested either in investing directly into things like the plant protein fractionation opportunity we talked about, but also could be large off-takers of facilities that are set up here. So I'm going to stop because I could go on forever. Chris, maybe you can add some more context.
Sure, I can add a bit. And I think, maybe I'll start just by saying that it would be next to impossible, I think, for Edmonton Global or any other single organization to know the level of detail about any of the regions that's really needed. So we really approach this as a large team. So there's pieces that Edmonton Global leads, but when it gets into needing that really good depth of expertise in say in ag in Leduc County, you've got Mark and Brianna in particular. Like Brianna's expertise in the agricultural sector and knowing what the needs and the opportunities are in Leduc County. We reach in directly to her and then work with her to figure out how do we take that out to any particular investment opportunity. So it's it is trying to really approach it as that larger team rather than trying to duplicate what's happening across any one area. I'd say as well, Mark has been outstanding at reaching into us as he's developing and the team is developing messages and kind of opportunities and how you want to position the county for both site selectors and other international investors. I think all of the web updates and brochures and different pieces that your county's worked on, we've helped as well. Again, Mark's absolutely been leading it, but it's that collaborative approach I think really matters and helps. And I would say too, just to back up Mustafa's comment about site selectors, when I first started in this role, one of the first things we did was commission a study of international site selectors, just to really understand what the knowledge, the awareness was of our communities. And it was next to nothing. 82% of the people that we spoke to had not only never done a deal in the region, but had never even thought of doing a deal. And these are people whose entire careers have been based on finding the best locations. So it's there certainly is work on that detail side, which I think is the root of your question. But there's significant work that we need to do just to get awareness of our region and to get on those long lists and then the short lists.
Kelly has a follow-up question, and then I have Councillor Smith.
Yes, and thank you for that. It's important that you understand where we're coming from. It's what our offering is. If there's more that we can do to ensure where the cream is rising to the top. Once again, Trevor's presentation was a good one, but we're here waiting. 3 years you've got invested into this, but we're here waiting. So you need to hear that message from us. My second question is around strategic planning. When are you looking at a refresh on your strategic plan? Because it is very important. And as a stakeholder, we want to be able to participate in that because that is our opportunity. at the table. And not having a strategic plan is difficult for us. Yes, we do have great EDOs representing us, but strategic planning is that opportunity for refresh that I feel as a stakeholder we should have. So is that in the upcoming near future? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to, I'll let Chris talk that. I did want to note that we've also recruited Ria, who's our VP of Strategy and Innovation. And that will support sophisticated strategic planning and engagement with you. But I'm going to hand it over to Chris to outline process.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Tracy. And it's a very good question. So last year, we sat down and did a refresh of the strategic plan. So we're a little less than, I think, a year into the strategic plan, refresh version of it. And we did that in part just to make sure we were really on track with the impacts of COVID and global supply chain and a number of issues that were happening around the world. We have a new, you'll know that at this spring's AGM, we'll have a number of new board members coming on. There's a bit of a refresh to and high level look at strategy before that happens. And we'll be commencing, I think, a very robust strategic plan, just once we have those new board members in. But I would say, though, too, that there are other elements that we're also doing refreshes on. Right now, we have, the brand piece, we're talking about the regional narrative inside that. So the stories that we tell and how we kind of link that narrative of the region. We've, for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we've had a series of interviews taking place with every mayor in the region. I think there's a couple more scheduled next week. We're also doing interviews with a number of business leaders here in the region. And we're interviewing a number of trade commissioners who are working on our behalf around the world, a number of companies around the world, a number of expats who used to live here are now living and working around the world in significant business roles, both to validate, what we're saying about ourselves and how those messages are being received in other parts of the world. When we came out with the narrative, the first version of the narrative back in the spring of 2019, we purposefully called it Chapter 1 because we knew it was the beginning of a longer story. What we're working on right now is Chapter 2. And then that work is going to inform the next build out of our website, which we're hoping to have finished by the end of this June. It will inform, other activities that we have in markets around the world, marketing campaigns. So I think even though our kind of master strategy is probably a year old, I think there's significant work happening to make sure that we're current, we're up to date, and that the messages we're sharing out to the world, both are grounded in the reality of today and what we're trying to build tomorrow and what the world's looking for.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you for that. And what a timely presentation. Good to have you in today. I just wanted to share something with you, what I'm hearing in the region, and there are some grumblings about measurables, value with Edmonton Global. And again, that's talking to other councillors in the area. And again, talking to some councillors from St. Albert, I see they've pulled out of the air fund, and I can see some contributors going away there. Of course, Leduc County is committed to our airport. I just wanted to do a couple of observations and ask for a comment from you. You had $1.7 billion in capital expenditures, which is really great. However, and 2,600 jobs. However, you remove the 1.3 billion from Air Products, which is a big win, and they're 2,500 jobs. Your measurables are now 400 million. 69 million was Labatt's, which the Alberta government said that was them. Global said it was them. Labatt's, I'm sure, were just actually doing something internally within their business. So I guess I'm looking at, and another thing is the Alberta government put together kind of an economic recovery, Global leading it, and I'm not seeing rules on it. I'm seeing it high place people in the city of Edmonton. So I'm not sure they're representing me. Would you comment on take out your win or Air Products coming into our region and the only 400 million instead in investments over a long period of time? That's not a big win if you remove the Air Products. And again, I'm just talking about the grumblings that are coming out there. I'm still committed, but I'm starting to wonder what's going on. Air Fund's going. So take out the 1.3 billion from Air Products. Can you comment? Are you satisfied with only 400 million for the rest of your wins? Thank you.
You want to start, Tracy?
I'm sure we'll have a number of comments on it. So I mean, really, this is kind of the crux of the discussion. So I appreciate the question and the comment and some feedback. The first thing, because it's a bit of a sort of a more narrow focus, so let me just deal with the Air Services Opportunities Fund really directly. Again, from my perspective, that is a huge win for Leduc County, because what it means is the funds that you used to invest in air service are now being leveraged by those other entities for much greater opportunity to drive air service. And that can be a challenge in our region, because one might argue that an air service expansion, whether it's cargo or passenger, more directly benefits Leduc County versus others. As we all know and agree, although that investment, that air service investment happens within Leduc County, the benefit is to the entire region. So while I do recognize that we have some individual entities that aren't going to continue to invest for years 2 and 3, when I think of where we were together a couple of years ago, with zero funding outside of us and a couple of other partners, that is significant. And again, a reminder that in terms of Edmonton Global, that was not an Edmonton Global initiative. However, the region really was looking for a model through which it could contribute to air service. And so Edmonton Global is now administering that, auditing it to ensure value for the investment. I'll hand it over to the trade team to talk a little bit more. I will just tell you that Labatt, for example, was not just something that happened or a done deal. That made it to our board table over a number of months. And again, without getting into specifics, it certainly was not a given that it was going to be here. And we were really concerned at different points of time about the risk of that. But of course, these are things we're not going to, be speaking, sort of really publicly about. But again, that was not just something that happened. That was something that Edmonton Global pursued and made happen. And stuff, I'll hand it over to you.
Eddie, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I can add a couple of things. In my conversation with my contact in Asia, the last 2 years means that they have not been able to travel at all. And as far as they're concerned, they cannot make any investment, make any decisions, because when we're talking about agricultural product, value-added product, and so on, they're not like commodities where you just you can just buy in bulk and whatnot. So the ability to visit a place is extremely important. So I think to that extent we've been hampered there, and I don't want it to be an excuse, but I just want to put that forward for consideration. And when we're looking at the value-added product and so on in agriculture, Canada works in a very regional way. Western Canada relies on Asia. Central Canada relies on Europe. So I think for us, the inability for Asian investors to come here has been really a big issue. And also it's a long game because when we first started out, Alberta, and I would actually put Alberta in that category. We really did not have a very firm foundation for foreign direct investment. We didn't have databases on what we can do, what we can offer investors, and so on. And that was something that I complained for over 10 years to my colleagues in the Alberta government, is that we don't know what we can offer people. So I think with Edmonton Global and the region, we were working on some very elemental stuff. And so I think it would take a bit of time. So I would probably ask a little bit more patience. And if you ask the question of whether I'm happy with it or as a board member, I would say yeah, I'm satisfied because I've seen the foundation being built, and I think that really the true benchmark and true evaluation will come in the next couple of years. Once an investor can come and we can go overseas and show what we have here, I think that's really where we can really assess the ability and the effectiveness of Edmonton Global. That's sort of my personal view.
Thank you, Eddie. It's really good to have that context. Apologies, I have a little person who's just woken up from a nap in the background. So if there's a little bit of enthusiastic shouting in the background, that's what that is.
Is he
but I
on the
would just say-
bail?
Beyond the bail, yes. Look, Councillor Smith, I appreciate the conversation because I like it when people come straight out and say, hey, we're not happy, or this is what we're thinking, or this is what we're feeling. The short answer from me is, am I satisfied with $400 million of investments excluding Air Products? No, but I'm never satisfied, right? But it depends on what were people expecting. We started from ground zero. This region was not on anybody's map. And then this pandemic, and Eddie's right, there are a few deals that we have that are pending, basically the ability for people to come into market to sign off and finalize deals. And there's a few $100 million worth of deals that will be announced. There is a big flywheel effect to investment attraction at this level. And momentum is building. So I'm very optimistic about the future outlook, but we really have to be careful of grounding. What are people actually expecting? What do they think is going to happen? Do you think you just create Edmonton Global and $1 billion a year is going to show up? Is there a certain number of deals or jobs? So I think resetting expectation is important, whatever they are, and make sure that we're being judged fairly against that, but also timeframes. I think to Malcolm's credit, Edmonton Global does a good job too of not taking claim for wins that happen in our region that we may have touched but maybe didn't lead on. So Amazon warehouse announcements, we don't include the Dow announcement, which happened not long ago. That's $6 billion, right? But we maybe had very minimal interaction there. So we're trying to raise awareness, and Chris's activities, his team's activities of putting us on the radar is huge. The fact that we've just gone out into market for the first time in 2 years in Q4 with trips into Europe and the Middle East, they're starting to build momentum. And the fact that we've landed this International Hydrogen Convention that's taking place at the end of April, and where we have delegations already confirmed from over 15 countries coming to our region, including Japan, South Korea, 8 or 9 countries from Europe, the Middle East, the US, Latin America. This is going to be the largest delegation of international business people coming to our region since the FIFA World Cup in 2015. Now, what are we going to do to show off our region when they're here? How are we going to make sure they see the assets? And how do we make sure that there are investable opportunities like the business case we're working on to put in front of them? And I'll be honest, we're also working in a challenging landscape beyond COVID. We have a government which is biased towards the south within our own province. We've got Invest Alberta that was recently set up and has lots of challenges. We don't see a lot of value add, from Invest in Canada, who's supposed to be providing a lot of value. So in spite of everything, I'm optimistic, but I'm not completely satisfied. I would always like to see more. But I would just end with Eddie's comments. Show a little more patience, but please come to us when you have those concerns about what should we be expecting and should we see more results. I'm happy to have those conversations.
Thank you. And I think somebody needs your attention more than we do right now. But I try not to let council cry like that when we do have people on the line. A couple of things, and it'll be kind of a couple of comments and then a summing up because we're almost at time. Appreciate all that. And I appreciate the request for patience, but this has been a lot of years. And what I heard was Edmonton Global is going to be changing its narrative. What's our narrative when we're stopped on the street, because we are, and somebody might ask, when I talk about even at our, when we talk about our message to the county, I talk about Edmonton Global, and then I get, the comment about, pardon the pun, where's the beef? What is our narrative? Just wait. We're spending money and it'll invest, because we were told 5 years ago that it would take 5 years. And I will give you that we've had a pandemic in the middle of that, but other people have continued to grow. Heard rumor that the agricultural sector down by the city of Calgary is just booming, and broke my heart, because that was one of the big promises that we've had here. So please understand that as you feel perhaps a little bit of pressure from shareholders, we have pressure as well from elected officials that we actually live with every day and see every day, and is a different level of pressure. And so we are becoming impatient. I'll be honest. We are continuing to hope. We're continuing to invest. But we actually, maybe the answer is, and I brought this up at an EMRB meeting last week, maybe the structure isn't really working for elected officials who generally sit on boards of directors, as opposed to one more step removed from as a stakeholder table. So we're concerned. We appreciate, that there is working forward. Yeah, we will get some of that manufacturing job from the Air Liquide, whatever investment. But they are seeming to be landing at Edmonton. And how does that look, and how do we explain that to our residents? I guess those are more rhetorical questions that need an answer for. We will continue to support. We would like to have more narrative. And I believe that when Edmonton Global did hold a bit of a consultation session at the airport 3 years ago, almost all of council showed up because we care. And we want you to know what our issues are, and we want to see movement forward. So be happy to meet with you guys at another time, regionally, sub-regionally, don't care. But as Councillor Smith said, there is a lot of, the whispers are becoming louder. The whispers are becoming murmurs, and then they will be coming louder from our colleagues about why are we still investing? And yeah, that's what I have. Thank you. No need to answer those aside from we can set up another meeting at another time. Thanks. And with that, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. I still think we have some, again, might be some structural changes we need to do with Edmonton Global. If you're willing to do that, here's some options. Might be some other kinds of communication challenges, but we're with you now. But looking forward to your strategic reroute. And if you aren't having one, what I heard from one very interested member is that he'd like to have one, and might be good advice from that member. So thank you for your time today.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. And the whole point of these engagements is to hear concerns and make sure that we can consider those and not just wait until formal mid-year updates and those kinds of things. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Someone want to move that as information? Councillor Vandenberg, all in favor? Unanimous. I was voting for it. That's right. All right. Thank you very much. Number 5A, new business, start time for regular council and afternoon council committee meetings. I just put this on the agenda. We have had conversations during lunch or different times. We did make a decision at our organizational meeting to move the start time to 1 o'clock. And as we've moved through that for the last 2 or 3 months, I've seen very positive pieces. I mean, it's nice to be out half an hour earlier than I would have, but we're also, I think, feeling a little bit of compression with our time. Councillor Smith, myself would have booked meetings with residents during that time because I'm already here and it makes it convenient. The 1 hour doesn't allow for that. We've had conversations, and I'm just going to ask Mr. Coleman just to comment. Lots of times in the morning, we're not out till 10 after 12, and that's good because we take the time that we need, but it does create a bit of a crunch for administration. So if he could speak to administration. So this is just for discussion and perhaps consideration to change it back to 1:30, but I'd like to hear from administration. Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of council. So yes, it's there's oftentimes there's things that we need to do over lunch hour as well, prepping for the afternoon or what have you, to adjust for the afternoon schedule. So a longer time period is appreciated if council moves in that direction. If it doesn't, we will continue with
to eat on the run.
Eat on the run or not eat. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Floor is open for any discussion. Councillor Vandenberg.
Well, I brought it forward in terms of some experience, and a lot of times we have a lot of spare time, and yes, you can't book meetings in all the time. So the efficiency on 12 to 1 was agreed to as just to give it a try for a while. However council feels is fine with me. I can't say that you can start earlier to get that noon spot open longer. But it's whatever the council feels comfortable with.
Agreed.
Really.
Agreed. Thank you for that. And thank you for your suggestion. I had thought about that a couple of years ago about starting at 1 until we've actually gone through it. Councillor Smith?
Again, I quite enjoy getting finished a little bit earlier, but it does present a challenge. Just an example today, I didn't come in yesterday. I don't like doing business and trying to do the trip. So today I'm multitasking. I'll be in and out, not completely focused over lunch. I know I met a lot of my residents. I had to meet somebody the other day. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in days that I shouldn't, which costs the county money. Definitely appreciate getting done early, but I can appreciate admin struggling when we instruct them to bring something back. They should have a lunch break, but obviously in some cases they're not. So again, it's up to everybody. I'd prefer to go back so I can do some business in between that period of time. Again, I try to do as much as I can every day I walk through the door instead of coming in extra days. Thank you.
Councillor Balazer and then Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, for me, it's either way. I don't mind. And if it's going to help administration and Tanny and whoever else with meetings, I'm fine with it. That half hour, I'm here for the day. And if that day is going to be 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, it's immaterial because my day is booked for this. So if we change it back, I'm fine with it.
Thanks for your comments. Councillor Lewis?
I'm fine too. I've seen Dwayne come running down sometimes because he's probably wiping crumbs off his face, but that's okay. I'm fine with it, whatever works for council too. I'm here if I got to do errands. Should be on my own time anyway.
Any more comments? I will put a motion on the floor then that start time for regular council and afternoon committee meetings begin at 1:30. Starting April 1st.
Just for clarity on that motion.
Yep.
Are we starting our protective services and these other
Good part.
committee meetings at the 1 o'clock mark or is it the 1:30? And if it is at the 1 o'clock mark, should this motion apply to them? Because there's nothing in the morning anyway.
That was a great speech, but your mic was off.
Do I need to repeat that? So the question is on some of these other committee meetings, are we starting at 1 o'clock because of that, or are we? I don't recall. And if we are starting at 1:30, then it's a moot point. But because if we don't have anything in the morning and we're just coming in for an afternoon meeting, does this motion then apply to a 1 o'clock start for those? Or 1:30? I just want clarity.
Thank you for that. That's a good point. I'm going to adjust my motion because you've made a really good point. The only day we actually have back-to-back committee meetings is Mondays when we have Public Works and Ag Service Board, but actually that's different administration generally that comes in for them, except for Mr. Coleman or whomever else. So I'm going to adjust my motion to be a 1 o'clock start for priorities, 1:30 start, thank you, for governance and priorities and regular council meetings. Does that create confusion for administration?
I mean, there's some risk confusion, but it's not insurmountable if council wants to go that direction.
What do you guys think? Do we want to, because I thought Kelly's point was well taken. Thoughts? The motion's open for debate. Councillor Smith and Councillor Balazer.
If there's any chance of confusion, it surely will occur. So I'm pretty happy with 1:30 for everything. But again, I could see our residents going, why the heck do you have two start times?
Yeah, he took the words right out of my mouth too. I was going to say, make them all 1:30 and get rid of the confusion, and especially for those that are going to commute for some distance in, which there's a few of us that really could throw a wreck into things. So I would say make them all 1:30.
Councillor Lewis.
I would say the only meetings that residents show up for would be governance and priority and regular council if they were to attend. I have never seen a resident at a protective service committee or, well, public works the odd time, but that's usually by appointment only. So whatever works, I'm fine with, but it would make sense just that our council and governance meetings are 1:30 start and our committee meetings are 1 o'clock.
Councillor Wanchuk.
I think we should leave it all the same. Stay at 1:30, everything across the board. Everybody knows, instead of having different times.
All right, thanks. Now you've really made me confused on my motion. I'm going back to my original motion, Ms. White, sorry, that we start all afternoon committee meetings and council, whatever else meetings at 1:30. I believe, and I appreciate your very wise words that if confusion will happen, it will. And this is about transparency and it's just easier. You're right. It's just easier. Okay. Motion is on the floor. Any more debate? All in favor? That's unanimous. And that's beginning in April. Thank you. We'll be able to advertise that, Ms. Klamosko, clearly and all that. Thank you. It's not starting now. Come back. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for the discussion. Most importantly, thank you for the respect that shows, I think, to our administration who do get jammed up in that sometimes 40 minutes or less in between. Really appreciate that. On to Mr. Gallant, Economic Development and Edmonton Global Updates, and then followed closely by Mr. Evans. So Brianna's here as well. Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you for having us here today. Of course, we're doing our monthly updates, and if there's questions along the way, please ask. Some potential leads, and I guess this is timely, as we were just speaking with Edmonton Global, shared an opportunity with all stakeholders looking for a site for a hemp processing facility. Leduc County was able to share one very compelling location, and I think we're very close on that. Leduc County is the chosen jurisdiction for a clean tech venture that has an innovative technology in the energy capture market. Planning and development is working with the client to make their transition as seamless as possible. This will be a very interesting company to share information with once they establish their roots here. Real estate update. Acre Commercial Real Estate is reporting that Leduc Nisku vacancy rate is 5.55%. And I have attached their most recent monthly market update for your information. Jim McKinnon really researches the park and does a lot of work here. So I usually like to include his information. Sector updates, transportation logistics. Leduc County has been in discussions with Cold Chase, an innovative company working out of the EIA. They developed out of the ACAMP, which is the Industry-Led Advanced Technology Product Development Center. Very long term there. That facility has been at the EIA for a number of years. They've made a Canadian-made tracking device that is food and pharmaceutical grade certified. Administration is helping find contacts for this company to help them grow.
Councillor Vandenberg, go ahead.
Mark, if I could just go back to your first lead. Can you suggest within Leduc County whereabouts that clean tech venture is interested in? Because then it would tell me what type of technology. I guess it would give me some sense if you're able to.
Where they're looking to locate?
Yeah.
They're looking at a brownfield site. So it's an existing building.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Project status updates, broadband strategy. I believe it was last time we met, we were tasked to come together as a project team on broadband and explore opportunities and options for council to look at. We've had a couple of meetings and done some investigation with various stakeholders and providers, and we should have something for council in the very near future. I would say in the next month and a half for council to look at. The Nisku Recreation Center, I believe we have a report on that immediately following this, but we do have our application into Prairie's Can. We've been discussing very closely with the stakeholders there. Of course, it has to go to Ottawa for the final decision, but we are very optimistic that a decision will be coming within weeks, if not days. The marketing videos, community profile for the food processing center. The videographer has wrapped up. We do have the videos. We're just looking at the final edits. Along with the community profile, we will be presenting to the ELT team here on Friday for their final comments. These two marketing pieces, of course, will be presented at our ECDEV Summit, which the date is still to be determined. As you can imagine, there's challenges trying to coordinate that, but we're very close on a date, which we believe will be in late April.
Go ahead.
Okay, I guess just need some clarity around this. The Economic Development Summit that you're talking about is the one that we had traditionally had in the past, correct?
We had the one.
Yes, because there's a large one that's being talked about upcoming in the fall. So I'm wondering if there's a risk of duplication there. Can you talk to the one that Edmonton Global is leading in the fall? And what would be the difference of this one we would be leading in spring?
Yes, the two summits would be quite different. Obviously, the one that we're doing in April is a Leduc County led summit, where we invite the stakeholders that we believe would be interested in what we're doing in economic development. And what I'll do is I'll let Brianna talk about the large summit that has now been named. I believe it's in September, and Brianna is actually on one of the working committees.
Thank you. I just want to understand the opportunity and the difference between.
Certainly.
So there's opportunity for us in both of them, and they're different target audiences. So the Edmonton Global one is focused on 5 different working areas: hydrogen, pharmaceutical, food and agriculture is the committee that I chair. Very much pushing for our companies to be represented in that space. It's a very flashy event at Shaw Conference Centre. With their target audience is 800 people. Basically trying to get people to get together again. In comparison to our event is focused on our region and showcasing, again, the potential for agriculture and food in Leduc County specifically.
Thank you very much. I believe that one in the September is called / is the term that they're giving it.
Correct.
And because it's important to know the difference between both of them, and that way we have a realistic expectation as to the outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. As I go forward here, FTZ Foreign Trade Zone, Port Alberta. This has been resurrected. I think I had mentioned in previous reports. The website is now up and ready to view. They're looking at a launch later in March here, March 22nd, 23rd. Edmonton Global is leading that along with all of the regional stakeholders, whether it be Canada Border Services, Invest Alberta, of course, the airport. There's almost 20 to 24 different stakeholders that are involved in launching this particular or reinvigoration, reimagining of what Port Alberta used to be.
Can we name it something else? That is such a confusing term. It took me many meetings to get my head around that. Nothing's come out of it. I mean, I'm all for anything that works. Calling it Port Alberta, yeah, it doesn't work. I appreciate their quote about this being complex and all that kind of stuff. And we certainly need to know that perhaps ahead of time, Mark, if we could, before they release all that. Does Calgary have a free trade zone as well?
Yes, I believe they do. There's a number of trade zones across the country, and I believe there's 8 or 10 across the country potentially. Okay. So it's not that unique per se, right, but it does create some advantages for companies who can take who can take advantage of it, but I don't know that it's widely publicized where people understand how it can help them.
Boom, including the mayor. So more in a simple way. Great. If you could do an anecdote, if you could do a story, if you could follow some goods through there, free trade zone versus not free trade zone, that speaks to people, right? Give us a made up example about a load of widgets coming in from China.
Exactly. I believe you're correct. We need to be able to share those stories so that even the general public could understand what it's for.
Yeah, because when people start asking about Port Alberta, it becomes really confusing for us. And again, we need to be able to message that. That's the other piece. And maybe that's, I'm just looking over the screen at Renee there. When this kind of stuff is coming up from somewhere like global, and it's a little bit complex like this, we need to have those speaking notes. We need to be able to say, well, it's called Port Alberta because it's coming directly from Prince Rupert. It's the first port of call, so it's like a port. Whatever those words are, I don't even know if that's true or not. That's what I understand it to be. It might be wrong. But we need to know that as well, so that when somebody asks us, we have the county words for it as well. Glenn?
I've got to say, these words Port of Alberta have been kicking around in our council with Rick Tanny and I going back many years. Now, that to me was going to be a huge container launching site on the north side of the airport, which probably has fallen by the wayside. So
we need more.
I don't know. Is this anything like that they've talked about for years?
People, I believe, misunderstand in that they believe it is a physical site. It's not a Port Vancouver or the Halifax Harbor, or it's not a physical site that you bring in shipping containers or trucking logistics per se. It's more about surrounding all the different services, whether it be through Trade Commission, Export Development Canada, Canada Border Services, CFIA certification, Alberta Transport. It's having access to those services and experts in those areas that can help with export and there is some certain tax advantages that they can obtain by bringing in goods, repurposing them and shipping them out.
Yep, we need more.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and thanks for that. We did need more clarity on it, because going back to that was going to be a drop-off destination. It wasn't like you just explained. So if you're going to use them same words, people are going to go back to that same thought that I just had.
Yeah.
Kelly?
I've been following Port of Alberta for a while. I thought the name was catchy, but in consideration that this is a common thing elsewhere, I think it's now confusing to label it as such. And I believe that there's an opportunity for messaging and marketing that, as you described it, Mark, we should be filling that out. And we as council should be comfortable with the concept. My question is around is our expectation of Edmonton Global driving this forward? To whom's benefit is this? We need to understand that. So I think that there's an opportunity for a much larger conversation here. Because this could have some significance for us, but we don't understand how. So that's a problem.
Madam Chair, I've written a note here that I'd like to gather a Cole's notes or something that I can share with council so that they do have that background knowledge when they're speaking with constituents, with business owners, et cetera.
And we can do a learning lunch on that. That would be a great idea. Some information, some conversation. Go ahead, not in a meeting setting. Go ahead, Greg.
Madam Chair, we'll bring a report for you on this.
Will you?
Yeah. Just an educational piece, and it has changed shape over time, right?
Yeah.
This is so that
and as we said, the caution around using Port Alberta is it might have a connotation to people who are here more than 9 years.
Yep. It's like AUMA saying Alberta Munis.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Okay, but thank you. I'm glad it came up. It's a blind spot. It's a hole we have. We're going to get a report. We're going to learn all about it. I'm so looking forward to that.
well, and there's the what is it question, and then there's the what isn't it question.
Yes.
But there's also the governance piece around how this is managed. This is not our thing. We sit at the table on this, and we're learning too, quite frankly. But the governance piece is important to understand because it's really what's behind the concept, right? It's not a physical thing. It's more of it's kind of like the regulatory and administrative infrastructure that makes this concept work. Like, we need to roll that out for you.
Please.
So, yeah,
So you're saying that this whole thing could be regional?
it is regional.
What is?
And, because my vision was the containers.
See, I rest my case.
You know?
And please don't be frustrated with us. This was 9 years ago, fell away, talk about it a little bit, come back, go away, come back. It's pretty soon, it's like, I don't know, go ahead.
Yeah, just to build on Grant saying, this is a little bit out of our hands.
Yeah,
And
but we need to
so
understand it.
We need to understand it for sure. Council needs to understand it, but we're
not running it.
We don't guide or run it or direct it. I would take the liberty to say the province and Edmonton Global don't completely understand what this is yet, to be honest, to be frank. So we're a little bit in the dark here as well.
Right,
So
as much and appreciate that. We need the report. We need that. Even if we just understand the high level concept and we have some words around that, that is helpful because I do not want to lead an investor, not that I ever meet with any, but if I happen to run into one at Safeway aside because I didn't understand the concept.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Great discussion. No, I've thrown Mark
No,
off.
that's okay, Madam Chair. It's funny when I bring up something that creates more questions than it answers. So
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay.
Good. That's the right answer.
Edmonton Global, again, just dovetailing off of, I guess their kind words. They did kind of pump our tires, both Brianna and myself, which is fine. We do work very close with them on many fronts. Edmonton Global is working on their signature event, which we just talked about. The date has moved to September 23rd, called /. And Brianna is intimately involved with the organization of it. So we'll have insider knowledge on that.
Yep.
You may have read that Malcolm Bruce is working with Minister Schweitzer on an economic recovery working group for the Edmonton region. There was one formed in the Calgary region, and I'm not sure why we were kind of second fiddle, but he has established that as well, and he's looking for input from different jurisdictions on that.
And just on that, and I believe it was Councillor Smith who brought up to the MLA we met with earlier, we need to have rurals on these boards. This cannot be driven totally urban centric. We need to have rural. So just if that's not, Malcolm hasn't kind of done that, we need you guys on, somebody who represents rural municipalities sitting on this. I'm seeing a yes from Brianna.
Cyril Turton is the other co-chair that the MLA. He's the other
guy.
Chair.
Co-chair. Okay. So again, as you work with Malcolm on this through economic development, the county strongly advises that we ensure the rural voice is on that, because we know that the 4 rural communities or municipalities around Edmonton actually are the economic drivers, and we need to be sitting on these committees at whatever level they're at. Please, strongly recommend. Phone me.
Gotcha.
I mean, phone me. If Malcolm has to phone me to hear that, I will tell him.
Certainly. You may have heard of the Canadian Hydrogen Convention, which is being held here at the end of April. They mentioned 15 different countries that are coming. I know that they did mention some of the delegations. I think there's like 15 people coming from Germany, UAE, Netherlands. So this will be literally one of the biggest events that's happened since the pandemic occurred. So this is really going to be quite something. And they're looking to do some site tours as well. I'm not sure how we can be participating in that, but
Is there a trade show along with?
yes, there's a full trade show. Edmonton Global has Edmonton Global along with the Edmonton Hydrogen Hub have a large presence there, and we can participate in that.
Councillor Vandenberg.
So one of our economic pillars is all about our manufacturing capability, and I like calling it high-speed light manufacturing. If this is the opportunity, my question would have been, what are we going to do about that? I think one of the things we need to be doing about that is ensuring that this opportunity, this messaging is getting out to the people in our NISCU and other industrial areas. so that they can set themselves or gear themselves up for a trade show booth or participation or handshaking, that sort of thing. If we're serious about Nisku being represented as the manufacturing hub, we need to let our people that are paying our taxes in here know of this opportunity so they can jump on board.
Councillor Smith?
Isn't that what Edmonton Global is being paid for, to run this and to reach out to people? We can always host them at the airport when they arrive if you want to get to them first.
Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
So during the presentation, I will say right now, because are we public? It doesn't matter. I get the strong sense that maybe not taking away from the work that you guys are doing, but maybe there's a lobbying effort that we need to do to the board members within Edmonton Global to ensure that the Leduc County hat is still flying high. And we shouldn't have to be doing that, but that's the sense that I'm getting that we need to do. It's all about this opportunity. Is a great one. And everybody thinks of sturgeon and Marinacci when it comes to those sorts of things. And the question is why? Because they're out front in it. So where is our opportunity and what are we out front in?
And what should we be doing about it? Go ahead, Mr. Coleman.
Well, Madam Chairman, as council, I think that's where we're headed with our own economic development strategy. We need to be at those tables. We need to be at those conferences. We need to be at the events across the country. Sturgeon, Strathcona, Fort Saskatchewan have been doing this for 25 years with the Heartland. They're down at the trade shows in Texas. They're everywhere. That's the sophistication level that we have to get to as Leduc County, not only for hydrogen plays, but for advanced manufacturing opportunities, logistical pieces, pharmaceutical, alternative energy, all those opportunities that exist. And so we need to get there. We need sophistication around our marketing. You're seeing some of that with our video pieces. We're going to have some internal investment in resources to get us to those tables. The role of Edmonton Global is to go out in the big giant ocean and troll. And then it's our job to land those fish individually. We're in competition with all those other municipalities in the region. And so to your point, exactly, Councillor Vandenberg, this is where we're headed. We've brought in Bob Murray. I was away for the presentation last week, but we are building our strategy around building our capacity and our ability to start hunting directly and be competitive against the sturgeons, the parklands, the Edmontons, the whoever's. We need to be to land those pieces. But it takes time and takes resources. We're not unlike Edmonton Global. We're a little bit in our infancy here. We've lived on good geography and good process, ease of development. You hear the positive feedback when we do land the Amazons of the world, that we're easy to work with. We don't have a lot of bureaucratic red tape. The park is easy to invest in. We're doing that with our redevelopments, our area structure plans. All these things are coming together, which is one of the reasons why we've talked about administratively. We need to have an economic development workshop with council, like an all-day workshop, to show you all the moving pieces and how the journey is moving. Because it's exactly to your point, Councillor Vandenberg, exactly.
It's time to pull away the grease for the wheel and let it squeak. And if I may, having a conversation with Lear Real Estate, who is very prominent with what's going on in North. Brian Milton is all about loving the relationship of working with Leduc County. He cannot give it enough praise. That's a strong message, and he's sharing it. That's a strong message that we need to be wrapping ourselves around. And look at us, because you're going to love working with our group and for the benefits and so on. We have to do a better job of those that story and messaging.
Madam Chair, if I could just, getting back to the hydrogen convention, Councillor Vandenberg asked about, how can we get our companies, manufacturers involved? You may or may not recall there was a webinar in the fall that I did send out listing to a couple of hundred businesses in the park that for them to attend. I don't know whether they attended or not. I did send them notification of that particular webinar about how they could get involved. Secondly, I am on a committee with Brent Lakeman, who is the hydrogen expert, if you will, that Edmonton Global has hired. He's leading, he's one of the organizers for this convention as well. So I was just on a meeting with him on Friday, and all those questions came up about how we can get our jurisdiction, our companies involved in this opportunity.
Okay.
Just very lastly, we're working with Edmonton Global on a number of leads, and some of those decisions should be coming up very shortly. So hopefully we'll be able to answer some of the
Absolutely.
skeptics, if you
Yes,
will.
yes. And again, nothing feeds confidence like a little bit of a win. So if we can get a couple of wins here, the confidence in the organization, I'm sure will increase.
Great.
Okay, someone want to move the report for information? Councillor Wanchuk, all in favor? He did the last. All right, thank you. All right.
Good.
Come on forward, Mr. Evans,
Stay here with me.
to talk to us about business retention and expansion feasibility study project charter. Oh, look, they made room for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So administration is bringing forward this recommendation for your consideration today, that the committee approve the project charter for the BRE and BRC facility pilot project. So I'll start off with just a bit of a background about how this project evolved. Council will recall that in late 2020, administration undertook a feasibility study to investigate the potential of transforming the Nisku Recreation Center into a business resource center. Around the same time, we were undertaking the IRIS study, which underscored the need to establish a business retention and expansion program within Leduc County administration as well. So since late 2020, administration has been working with Prairies Can on a funding application to do both of those things, being reposition the Nisku Recreation Center for business development and acceleration activities and develop a BRE program within administration. So a little bit of an update on how that process has gone. The initial grant application was submitted to Prairies County Q1 of last year, 2021. And it requested funding for a 2-year pilot project starting March 2021 and would run to March 2023. Since that time, we've been working with them on revising the application. And unfortunately, the funding window of that grant program has been compressing during the same time. So this has reduced the pilot project funding ask from a 12-month program to a from a 24-month program to a 12-month program. Unfortunately, past March 31st, 2023, funding will no longer be available through the CCTI program. Administration is the strong position that a 24-month time frame is much preferable to a 12-month program. And there's a number of reasons for that, but just to highlight a couple. Attracting talent for the positions that we're looking to fulfill to lead this program provides more certainty over a 2-year time frame than a 12-month time frame. And it's also important in our efforts to attract tenants to the Business Resource Center and establish more robust programming through the pilot project. So with that, Madam Chair, administration is recommending that the committee approve the project charter for a 2-year timeframe, and this would include potentially committing to fund the second year of the project, which is looking to be around $525,000 for the second year. Having said that, we will continue to work with a number of funding partners to secure funding for the second year of the project, and we are aware of a number of funding programs that we believe that this will fit nicely with. And just a note on there that pending the committee's decision, we would need to bring a funding request forward to regular council at a future date. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I've asked Mark and Brianna to help me out with any questions. Yeah.
All right, they're expecting lots and tough questions. And any questions? So recommending that we continue with the charter for 2 years because we believe that's how it needs to roll out, but continue to work with the government to try and or have we looked at P3s on any of this? Do we have the ability to look at P3s as a municipality on any of this?
The programs that we are most acutely aware of are in the federal and provincial realm.
Okay.
However, working with our partner for the operations of the building, they're aware of some potential P3.
Okay.
I think they've mentioned it in the past, and so that's definitely an avenue that we would continue to explore with.
Perfect. I have Councillor Smith and then Councillor Lewis.
Part of your other presentation, 2 year or 1 year wasn't enough to actually attract anybody, get them to come over and do it. And I see the 2 year is probably the scope that we should be looking at for success and moving forward. So I definitely see we only have money from the federal government for 1 year. However, there's also other money available for grants, and you have them in there. Other areas that we could be looking at, I think it's extremely important that we recognize that NISQ pays our bills. And I think that we need to continue to focus on new business retention. And I pay low taxes for a reason. And part of that is because of NISQ, the taxes that are going on. So I'd be supportive of year 1 paid for by the federal government, year 2, find a package of money that could be taxpayer money. It could be the legacy fund, because the legacy fund that we had was made to continue with investments in the area of areas that we've lost and diversification. I think it's important when I talk to people about why we do economic development in my area. I talk to them that economic development, some of it happens in spite of ourselves, but other one is business attraction. And I think Leduc County is probably doing much more than anybody we've ever paid to do it on our behalf, from Global to Lenita to whoever. And so I see Leduc County continuing to work with what they're doing successfully going forward. So I'll be supportive today of the 2 years. Again, 1 year paid for by the government, finding funding in next year's budget discussions or the next year whenever they're needed to go forward. But I'm really looking forward to this project. It's something we worked on. I've discussed it with residents worried about economic development, explained to them that economic development is something that we need to continue to do to attract people to, or they can pay more taxes. So today I will be supporting. In fact, let's have a look at that recommendation today. I see you have 2. I'll move that, and then it can go continue into discussions if the mayor will bear with me till I can just pull this down. I would be moving the recommendation that the committee approve the project charter for the BRE program and BRC facility pilot project as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. And so the motion's on the floor. We are open for debate. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Just a question of clarity. You were looking for a 2-year funding from the government, and the time frame has been moved down to 12 months. Can you tell me how the funding changes from it being fully funded to now it might cost Leduc County money?
Madam Chair, so the end of the funding window for this specific grant program has always been the end of March of next year. The reason why the project has moved from a 24-month to a 12-month project is the fact that the application was not approved last year, basically. And so a year has passed, and that is reduced the amount of time that's available for us to get funding through that program. So in terms of what the budget hit is, it's really that number that's being presented to you for the year, the second year of the project, which is just a little over 500,000, we estimate.
Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg. My apologies.
So,
microphone.
Okay, so this has been near and dear to my heart the whole last term I've been here. You're asking for another 24 months, and you've rolled out and you've justified to me why that makes sense. In light of our thrust forward in terms of our strategic planning, I agree that there's an alignment there. And the timing is everything. And maybe the timing is now. I would caution you that don't come back to me at 18 months and say it's going to be another 12 months. Don't do that. Don't do that, because we've had a lot of opportunity to look at this from different sides. You come together with an idea that makes sense. The funding opportunities in year 2 could be P3. I see that your stakeholders does not include Nisku businesses. It says the public, but I would encourage you to reconsider who our stakeholders are. I am in support of this today, and I believe it's in the right hands. The timing is correct on it, but it's time to get the ship a-sailing. My question is around the stakeholders, because for a clear distinction, this program is acceleration. It's not focused on incubation. And so the stakeholders that you're laying out include the Lighthouse, for example, and the Kovic Center in Beaumont. Good resources, but they are incubators. Okay, so I want to make that clear distinction that we should be including stakeholders that are in the acceleration. And that's more in line with, I think, where Lynette Tremblay is playing right now and so on. So we should probably have a look at who these stakeholders are. I don't know the value of, and I don't understand the synergy between the town of Thorsby, for example. What else is on here? The village of Warburg. I would like to know kind of what that connection is. Not that I'm against them participating, because we do have a commitment to Western diversification, but the roles need to be a little bit clearer to me in terms of those stakeholders. And so I guess my questions are, or my comments are around the stakeholders, being very clear as to who they are and who we're leaving out. Okay, in order for this to succeed, you need to have the right people at the table. And I believe that you're at the precipice.
Yeah, exactly.
The point in time
Yeah.
in which this will take off, particularly with what we're seeing happening with the upswing in our economy and getting out of this pandemic. Okay, so I've considered my words very carefully in this, and this is very, very dear to me that this thing moves forward. And to finish, I have a taxpayer who do I bump into in the pickleball court, I'll be honest. And she always asks me, when can I go start playing racquetball again? Jab, jab, jab. And I have nothing to tell her at the NRC. I have nothing to tell her. And
That's what I tell her.
You know,
Yep.
it's unfortunate. And now I do.
It's being
Thank
used
you
for
for
something
that.
else. Okay, so some feedback on some stakeholders, perhaps. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jordan. I know you're not looking at Catherine.
Madam Chair, just to respond to, there's a few things in there. We can absolutely be more specific in our stakeholder list around the public being comprised largely of Nisku businesses. That is sort of the crux of this point, and so we'd absolutely be happy to be more specific about that in the stakeholder list. With regards to the other incubators in the region, we feel that it's very important to make sure that we are aligned with the other entities of this nature in the region to ensure that we are sort of building out a incubation and acceleration ecosystem in alignment with our partners. And so that is the key to them being specified in the stakeholder list. And with regards to the towns, or the village and town of Warburg and Thorsby, this is a program that is funded through the Coal Community Transition Initiative. It is an important initiative for ensuring that the county is moving towards replacing some of that economic activity that's generated by the coal mine out west. We have been in contact with the administrations of both those municipalities to inform them that this program will be moving forward, and inviting them to work with us on the project, looking to, if there are businesses in their municipalities that can access some of these resources, we'd absolutely be looking forward to working with them on that. And then, moving forward in that with that goal in mind of trying to replace some of that economic activity.
And just the point that don't exclude or preclude other resources. This list is not finite.
Absolutely.
Allow it to flow and grow.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Good comments. We have the motion on the floor to approve. Not seeing any other hands up, so I will call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And we will recess until 1 o'clock.
I thought I heard you say 2023, but the library board says 2024.
Thank you. We're just taking a look. It is correct. It is 2024. Thank you for that attention to detail. Any other questions? All in favor? That's unanimous. Our last item is just an information item, which is a thank you letter from STARS, which is nice to have. Glad to see that they were able to take the time to let us know that. Someone want to move that information item for free information? Councillor Wanchuk, all in favor? And with that count, yes.
I know we support them. Does anybody know?
Microphone? Microphone?
Does anybody have a number how much we support STARS for? 10 grand. Do you remember?
I thought it was $5,000. We can certainly look that up.
Yeah, we can look it up.
It's not important. It's just, it's a very good cause and I totally support it. I was just wondering what our number was.
Yeah, it's under 10,000, but we do support it appropriately.
Okay. So with that, thank you for the question. And you're right, it is a good cause. With that, I will adjourn us at 1:44 p.m. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And you.